And now, after years of planning, sweating, and going broke, here is the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
I left the media.
Why they would give this man a podcast is anyone's guess.
Then there is what could only be a bizarre coincidence or something else.
Welcome to the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Country music and fine moonshine. Finally, a podcast that lets it all hang out.
Let's level with America.
Got your boots? Ready for some whiskey?
These boots are made for walking.
One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
And now, the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
Hey everyone, Jim here, Boots and Whiskey Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the show. We have great guests today. Absolutely, I would say legendary status, right? The Band of Heathens are here. You probably know the Band of Heathens from their rendition of Hurricane, which we will get into. Don't you worry about that. But they have a new album coming out this Friday called Countrysides. And, you know, you should be familiar with the Band of Heathens, right? And if you're not, I'll say this. This album, we've had the pleasure to hear it now a bunch. We've had it for a little while. And this is, if you know the Heathens, this is a great blend of everything they've ever done, I would say. It's got a lot of the old sound. It's got a lot of new sound. It's got a lot of familiar sound. I would say that, and I'm not just saying that because it's new, but this might be the best album to date, top to bottom, right? Every album has their quintessential songs on it, but this album is the best front to back. It's hard to make albums that have no skips, and I personally believe that this is a no skip album. There's some really good stuff in here. I can't wait for you to hear it on Friday. Go pre-save it everywhere you can. Yeah, it's really good, really good. And this conversation we're about to have, or you're about to hear, see, whatever, however you're consuming this, is just as good, if not better, than a lot of things we've done here. Yeah, I think that's the best I can give you with that. So sit back, relax, enjoy. We did do a couple of shows this weekend. We did Larry Fleet 2 nights, and then we did Lakeview. That's it. We'll talk about that on the flip side, though. So thanks for being here. If you've never been here before, you're about to see or hear a conversation like you've never have. It's a lot of just talking, just shooting the shit, talking about life. And that's what this is about. So it's your first time here, welcome. If it's not your first time here, welcome back. And we hope you enjoy the ride. And we'll see you on the flip side, guys. Cheers.
It's like, we're going to lose all the good stuff before we even start rolling.
Right.
Here, you know?
I can't tell you how many times I've started conversations and not hit record and was like, damn it, that was all the good stuff. Well, guys, thanks for being here. You're one of my favorites, and I'm not just saying that because you're here. But I'm going to let you, like we were talking about, Ed, I'm going to let you kind of like take the reins, tell us how this all kind of got started, and then we'll break down some of the finer non-musical points as we get going.
Yeah. Oh, it was in the year of our Lord 2005, where several members of the musical community in Austin congregated in a club called Momo's, which was on West 6th Street. Yeah, for real though. I think I want to say like the end of 2005. Gordy and myself, we were involved in kind of a. We each had a residency, which was kind of the coveted golden thing to have in Austin when you have a career and you're trying to do your thing, is to kind of play in the same place every week and build a following like that, which we were all attempting to do. It was 4 songwriters initially, and someone had the bright idea that, rather than each of us individually losing money every week and paying a band, maybe if we all joined forces and paid the same drummer and bass player collectively, that we might break even and maybe have a good time too. And not to oversimplify, but that was really the beginning and the genesis of the Band of Heathens. At that time, it was called the Good Time Supper Club, and Wednesday nights at a club called Momo's on West 6th Street in Austin, at 9 o'clock, we'd get together and pass songs and shots of tequila, and I think you could probably smoke in there at that time too. Anything that was allowed or not allowed, we were attempting to do it on stage in front of an audience, and that was the loose, freewheeling initial foray that we had into being a band.
Now, when you do start this and start getting going, at what point do you guys get together and click and say, okay, this can be something, we got to keep this going?
That's a good question. For us, the click came pretty late. I think we were kind of just having fun with it as like a loose side project on Wednesday nights. But one of the moments where it really crystallized in our minds as something special, I think, was when we started figuring out how to sing together. The 3 and 4 part harmonies really felt like magical to us. And I think that's when we were like, all right, there's something here that we haven't experienced before and seems to be resonating with people. And so we definitely chased that initially. I think that made us chase it a little farther outside of Austin.
Now, when you are doing that and you're in its infancy, how much of the songs are original? Like how, every band when they start out, does covers and all that stuff. But at what point were you guys like, you know what, I don't want to do the cover thing every night for 3 hours at a time. I want to do, originals.
Well, the Heathens stuff was pretty original from the drop because you had 4 songwriters, and basically what we did was we condensed each of our 4 1-hour sets into like a 2.5-hour set. So basically we were kind of each playing our own songs and backing each other up, So there was plenty of material to draw on. There was a couple of covers here and there. I think the first cover that we learned as a collective was Ain't No More Can on the Brazos, the Lead Belly song, but the version by the band. And that was one of the earlier memories I have of us kind of getting in a room and singing together and working something out, because the other underlying rule of the gig was that there was no rehearsals. There was no set list. Nothing was planned. Oftentimes the drummer would get up in the middle of a song to take a piss or to grab a drink, and someone else would jump up and grab his sticks. I mean, it was pretty loose, in the best sense of the word. And, before too long, a lot of people, both musicians and non-musicians, just came for the hang. It became a thing where, like, we get other friends up to sing songs, and someone would grab my guitar, or someone would hop on the keys, or someone would hop on the drums and sit in for a few tunes. So it was really kind of, through no grand design, became a really cool communal sort of hang and a vibe right out of the gate.
Now, Ed, you and I were talking about, before all this, like you come from up here, up in New England. Like, what made you go to Texas, of all places?
Well, I think Gordy will echo this sentiment too. I think the thing that galvanized the band, at least on some philosophical level, is that everyone moved to Austin for music.
Yeah.
When I was looking for a place to go, it ended up becoming between Nashville and Austin, and I just always, the vibe of Austin and the sort of the organic feel of music there, and the way it was just sort of part of the culture and not driven by the industry, was something that I was immediately attracted to. And just the history of Austin music and all the great bands that had kind of come through there, music that I had loved and been listening to before I arrived there. That was my motivation to be there. To be a part of a culture like that, and part of a scene that really was like music forward and music first. Was kind of like a dream of mine to be somewhere like that.
Yeah. Now, Gordy, are you from Texas originally, or?
For the most part, my dad was in the Navy, and so born in San Diego, lived in Virginia Beach, but I moved to Houston outside of Houston when I was 7. So grew up most of my life in Texas.
All right. Now with that, right, in bringing you to Austin, was music a big thing growing up for either of you, both of you, or was that something that came later and, as you got older?
For me, I grew up in a house of big music fans. My dad played a little guitar and started teaching me chords when I was maybe 10 years old. But I think in my adolescence, I, got really into guitar and started playing in bands, and it was kind of my thing, which I'm learning now, having two small children entering their teenage years, not so small anymore, but as I've tried to have lots of music around the house and, piano lessons, all those things, I've realized music is my thing, not their thing.
Right.
And I think that growing up, I was kind of the same thing. It was my thing, and it was my outlet, not necessarily a family activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, music was a big part of our house growing up. My dad, same thing as Gordy's dad, I think a big music fan and also an amateur guitar player and piano player. So, I remember at a young age, on the weekends, my dad owned a convenience store, so we didn't really have a lot of family vacations, and he didn't really have a lot of time off. But, Saturday night and maybe in some downtime on Sunday, I remember kind of hanging out, playing music in the living room, at a really early age. And then, as I got older, getting into bands and kind of doing my own thing. My folks were always really supportive of it, never sort of like demanding or insisting that I do any of these things, but always I think they quietly, or not so quietly at other times, were really kind of rooting for our bands and just enjoying it. You know what I mean? It was kind of an extension of things that they loved. We went to go see shows all the time when I was a kid as well too. So I think it was just sort of something kind of ingrained in me, and I took a liking to it. I think like Gordy mentioned, as a parent, you make things available to your kids and they kind of take a liking to it or they don't. And in this case, my dad, he really loved music, and he, I just remember the way he listened to music when I was a kid was exciting. We get in the car and he'd crank the radio to the point the speakers were blaring, and he'd be like, listen to the bass right here. This is great. Or listen to this harmony vocal where it comes in. This is so, and it just from a young age, I remember listening to Beatles records like Rubber Soul and hearing, Paul and John's voice were kind of the same volume. And sometimes Paul, if he was singing a high harmony, his voice would be a little bit louder. So it's kind of early on getting these ideas about harmony and just different things that were exciting that were happening within the music, Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned the Beatles because that's how it was kind of growing up here. I played drums a little bit in high school, and when I say played, I got by, right?
Yeah.
If you would have put sticks in my hand right now, I'd be a baby giraffe. I wouldn't know what to do. But yeah, music was a big thing here. Nobody played. I don't think if my parents had to sing to save their lives, they'd be dead, right? But same with me, right? And that's fine. But music was always on, always. And it's probably why I do this now, because it's I could never play, but I always wanted to be in the industry somehow, some way.
Yeah, that music is a magical thing.
Yeah.
And however we get to partake in it, Ed and I are both our music fans first. And it's a gift to be able to play it and make a living at it is a whole nother winning lottery ticket,
Yeah, for sure. Now, when you guys are starting off as doing your own thing, was there any sort of quote unquote success? Was anybody making headway, or is that why you decided to come together to make headway?
I think we were doing okay. I was doing okay in New England before I moved to Austin, but moving to Austin was kind of a blank slate. But I kind of feel like I hit the ground running in terms of there was a lot of support and a lot of people, who were fans, but were always like, hey, you should go to this place and they'll probably give you a gig, and you should meet this musician and you guys could work on some stuff together. So I felt like, the Heathens I was only in Austin maybe 6 months before the Heathens got going. So I was really still in kind of a, this sort of a magical period where everything was just new and great and fantastic. But But I think, the long answer to your short question is I think something happened with the Heathens on a chemical level that none of us were able to do individually. And what I mean by that is just, there was an immediacy to whatever we started doing, and probably through lack of design or lack of overthinking about it, it immediately resonated with people. And maybe for the first time for any of us, like, we went from having, small crowds where we started to, like, within a couple of months, packing that club out every week and it being a thing. Like, people were talking about it and there was a buzz about it and it was exciting, So on a non-musical level, like, that was happening. And then I think on a musical level, it was a lot of fun and really kind of a break from what we all thought was going to be the individual careers that we would go back to.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of grown up together as artists in a way. When we moved to Austin, success was like having a full calendar of bar dates and bar gigs, and if you had 20 gigs in a month, it was like, all right, I'm making it.
Yeah.
And I think as we grew and as we started touring and leaving Austin and, trying to string runs together, which we had been doing as solo kind of folk singers, up until that point, I think we shifted from a bar band to a band trying to make art and trying to make records that, there's all sorts of like party tricks that a band can do that like work really well in bars when everyone's drunk and no one's really listening critically, and everyone's just there to have a good time. And then there's, a theater show where a lot of those same things, everyone's still there to have fun, but there's like another level of, I think, critical listening that the audience is there for. And I think we kind of grew as a band into a band that is, success wasn't necessarily filling up the calendar with, 20 bar dates a month. And it grew into, all right, let's make a serious record here and then figure out how to create a 90-minute or 120-minute show that has a real arc to it with some real highs and lows and some dynamics, and not necessarily just trying to sell booze for the bar.
Yeah. Now, sorry, the ADHD in me is like kicking. So when you guys are, and I don't think I've ever talked about this with a band or an artist, when you are developing, whether it's the sound or the show or whatever, and you're putting together, that set list for whatever run you're on, right? How much effort actually goes into that? Like, how much planning actually goes into that? Like, from sitting down to being like, all right, we're going to kick it off with this and end here and put it all together. Like, is that how that works for you guys?
Early on, there was zero of that, I would say. 0.0%. And I also realized in what Gordy was saying, that I was having such failure in bar gigs because I was just trying to ram down a legitimate fucking show to people that were just trying to get hammered. So, but now I think a lot. I think, and I think every band's different with that. We don't really have, we're not doing a big production show. There's not a lot of lighting cues and there's not pyro. We're not blowing stuff up. So for us, it's more about curating a night of music. And that has evolved over the years as our catalog has grown. We have 10 studio records, a few live. I mean, we've got probably a few hundred songs that we could draw on at any time. So I think what it is, to your point and to Gordy's point, it's about creating an arc over the course of the night. And we attempt to do that. I think oftentimes are successful, and we've gotten better at it, much better at it over the years. It's a combination of, creating these musical moments, building tension points within the show where it builds to kind of a high energy point, and then maybe it's gonna drop down. So you want to kind of have these peaks and valleys, and then I think interspersed with some storytelling and some kind of more personal moments where you're trying to connect with the audience. I think for us, it's a little different every night because we're kind of trying to play, we're not trying to, we do play a different set every night. I mean, there's a handful of songs that I think we feel like we can't get out of the building without playing anymore, and I'm certainly thankful for that. But it's also fun to kind of dive into these different songs, and each song's kind of a little bit of a different tool. Let's say we have 20 ballads that we could draw on, or like 15 things that lean a little more country, or something that's a little more bluesy in a spot, or things like tempo. I think all these, we're kind of trying to factor all these things in when we're trying to create a perfect set and a set list every night.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jim, to your point, I think there's a lot of thought and effort that goes into it, and it's like Ed's saying, like you have this Swiss Army knife with all these blades, all these songs that can do different things.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, what city are we in? That plays into it. What does the room feel like? What did we play last time we were in this city? And so there's a lot of like kind of cross-referencing, just to keep it fresh, both for the audience, but also for us. It keeps it interesting for us, kind of mixing it up and, trying different things each night.
I love that you guys do that because, I remember when I may or may not have graduated high school in 2005 and then got into college in, at the end of 2005. And I was going to see shows with bands that were not country, right? I did a lot of jam bands. I did a lot of, I guess you could call them folk singers, Americana, whatever, right? But my point is I could see the same band back then on a weekend run in 3 or 4 different spots and not see the same show twice, right? And now you see all these bands, good, bad, and different, that are playing the same set list every night on a run, on a tour, whatever. And like, I get it. I get why they do that. But it's nice to know that there are still bands out there like yours that don't necessarily do that.
Yeah, you can't let AI take over, man.
Yeah.
Can't let the machines win.
Yeah.
You gotta keep it human.
And I had asked somebody once, and I was like, why is it that you do a summer tour or fall tour and you do 15 dates and every night it's the same thing? And they gave me a good reason. Well, because of the production and this and that, you need to know where all the cues are. There can't be any surprises and all that shit. And like, I get it. But, and then I see people or know people that see the same band on these runs 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And it's like, you saw the same show 6 times. It's like, I don't understand that. I don't get why, as the fan, as the consumer, why you would want to see that over and over and over again.
I think what people are forgetting, and as the musician, sometimes it's easy to forget this because you're aiming for a good show, and I think what sometimes you get tricked into thinking is that a good show is a show without any mistakes.
Right.
But the reality is, what people want to see is musicians going for it and really pushing themselves to the edge of their ability to go for something. And the other truth that we've learned over the years is that people love train wrecks.
Yeah, yeah.
The shows where it came off the rails are the shows that everybody remembers and everybody talks about.
Yep.
And it's because it's human. And that's the thing that resonates, and that's real, So yeah, it's hard, production. I mean, I saw Tom Petty a bunch in his, a couple times in his last tour in particular. And like, yeah, that show has moments and lighting cues. It's a big production.
Yep.
Some shows maybe need more of a set list that's, the same every night, but I don't know. I also maybe that's lazy. Maybe even those shows could break out of it a little bit more. I don't know. It's not, I mean, we're definitely keeping it fresh. We're trying to anyway.
Yeah. Now, do you find it easier or harder when you have a catalog like you guys have, where it is to pick, 15, 16, 17 songs a night? Or is it like, back to your point, Ed, where it's like, you have to play, 3 or 4 of the staples, right? Does it make it easier or harder when you have a shit ton of music to pick from?
I think it makes it easier insofar as that you have more things to choose from. And I think over the years, like, you get used to the idea that there's some songs that you really love that you might not be playing all the time, or it's like, because, Gordy and I will work on a set list before a show, and it's like, hey, what about this song? It's like, oh yeah, man, I forgot, we haven't played that, let's do that, and we'll sound check it or whatever. But yeah, I think, there's a lot to draw on, so I think the only downside to that is that we just don't get to a lot of things that we want to get to.
Sure.
But when we're playing a lot and doing a tour, over the course of a 2 or 3 week run, we will get to probably most of the things that we want to. And usually, like when we're doing runs like that, the most exciting for us is getting to play new material. Usually a new record that we've made, and that's where we're out on the road playing. So it's the combination of doing these new things and the audience giving you the space to do that, and then kind of maybe rewarding them with some things that they're expecting, that they want, and then some things that like maybe they didn't know they wanted but they needed, that we're going to surprise them with, whether it's a cover. Or it's, we like to call them chestnuts, these kind of old great songs in the back catalog that, they weren't really hits or like, fan favorites or anything, but there's always a handful of people in the audience that are like, man, I'm so glad you played that song. It's my favorite. And you haven't played that. And I think for me and for us, I think that represents us as music fans, in terms of like what you were saying. I was always a huge fan of like the Grateful Dead's ethos and Fish, bands like that, of playing different set lists every night. I'm also a sucker for a good Bon Jovi show where it's, pyro and the same set list every night, and the amount of energy they're putting in it out and kicking ass, or, Taylor Swift or Beyonce or something like that. Those are amazing productions, and I can appreciate that for what it is. But as a music fan, and that's kind of like what we're into, and I find like the type of people that tend to like our band are music fans. So I feel like we have a little more latitude in terms of like being creative with the way that we present music, I think a light show is great. I love when we play clubs that have amazing lighting rigs. It makes the band look badass on stage, and it's a great presentation for the audience, and it feels great being up there playing. But I think at the end of the day, it's about like how we're delivering these songs and the music. That's always been the thrust of it.
I think that's what has, I've been doing this now. This year makes 5 years, right? And I've seen hundreds of shows, and even before this. But I think that's what always brought me back to you guys, is that that live aspect, and how different, because that's, like I said earlier, like that's what I kind of grew up in live music with, is a different show every night, right? And that's why I think I like you guys so much, because it is I'm not trying to lump you in with jam bands or anything like that, but like, in that culture, in that world, that's what you get, right? And it's, for me, it's like being home in a weird way, because we like country music, and what we're doing, it's like it's the same shit over and over and over again, right? And I don't say shit like because it's bad, but it's the same thing.
Some of it is, some of it's shit. Yeah, it's
some
okay.
of it is. You just mentioned the the country Grammy award-winning Beyonce for some reason, but it's just so funny how you guys are underneath this. You can argue you're underneath this country umbrella, right? And there's a lot of bands, especially now, that are under this country umbrella, and how you have to stand out in your own ways, even being in the same room.
Yeah, I think all the categories and the styles and the there's good things that can be taken from all of them, and there's bad things too.
Yeah.
But it's like I love the storytelling of country music. I love the textures of country music and wooden guitars and pedal steel. I love the social dynamics of a jam band show. I love the taking chances that comes from a band that's, every night they're going out there to improvise and make something up out of nothing,
right?
And I love that too. And I think that's kind of one of the ways that we keep it fresh for our band. And it's why we play music. It's why it's fun for us, is kind of blending all those things, the storytelling, the jams, I think it's why the people that do like our band too, is it's because it's not just one thing.
Right. And with the way your career has gone, I'm sure you don't want to talk about how long it's actually been, but it's been 21 years now since 2005, as much as I hate to admit it myself. And for the big reason why you guys are here, you get an album coming out in February, or it'll be out the week we release this episode, so it all kind of makes sense, right?
Magic.
Now, and I've been super fortunate to listen to it, and it's great. Like, it really is. And if it wasn't, I wouldn't tell you that. And us New Englanders, we'd tell you if it sucks, if it did.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's like
honesty's good.
Right. Yeah. But I was listening to it again this morning, and it's very homey. And I don't mean that in a negative, but it's very like comfortable. It's something you can put on, and it's, you're not ready for the song to end necessarily. Mm-hmm. You're ready to see what's next on the album, but you're not in a hurry for that song to end or the next one to end, because it just flows so well.
Well, that's our old showbiz trick, man. We leave them wanting more all the time. But I think you're right. It's funny. Like, we did a record a few years ago, and Rolling Stone reviewed it, and they called our music comfort rock. And I'm never, to your point, we're not really one for labels and monikers, but I thought that one kind of clocked it pretty good. They had some descriptors to kind of explain what they thought comfort rock was. But I think I think the thing is, we've always been exactly who we are. We're not trying to be anything that we're not. I think, and for me at least, that's been the thing that's allowed us to stay inspired by what we're doing, and wanting in the songs to continue coming. And I think that's the whole thing, for Gordy and I, writing songs and making records. That's the engine that drives the whole thing. The excitement of a new song, and the creative juice that kind of provides to the whole project. That's so much of the creative capital is spent on that, and making sure that the songs are great, as good as they can be when we come to make a record. So yeah, thank you for that. And I like the record a lot too. I think I think as artists, we always say that the newest thing we've done is the best thing we've done, because it's the thing we're excited about. But I think I'm being honest about it. I think, if I wasn't excited about it, I probably wouldn't be able to come on here and talk about it. And I think, it's the thing that keeps us coming back, is, kind of wanting to, is like, what's, how far can we push this? What's the next edge? We've done some things that I'm really, everything we've done, I'm proud of, but it's about like, hey, can we do something else that's even better than that we've done? Can we better what we've done in the past? I think that's always the challenge.
Yeah, like, and if I'm talking out of turn, please, like, tell me to eat it. But it almost feels like this album is almost like a sigh of relief, where it was like this. How do I put this nicely without anybody getting mad at me on the internet? But where it's not like somebody's pushing you in a way of like, obviously you're going to do what you're going to do, but like, we all. Those of us in the background, right? We know how this industry works, where you get pushed and pulled, and pick this song, don't pick that song, whatever. It feels like you can hear in these songs, these are the songs you wanted to put out.
I think you're right. I think well, first of all, I want to say it's cool hearing your reaction to the record, because we haven't heard any of it. Like right now, as we're taping this, the record's not out yet. Right. And so it's just us. We know the record. No one else does. It's like our secret. Right. And I love it. I think we're really proud of this record. I think we made something special. And to your point, like, we've always been outside of the industry. We've never been a part of the machine. We've never been on a big label telling us what to do. And that's kind of by design. Yeah. And so we've always felt that freedom. And I think that this record in particular, at 20 years, we went in knowing like, okay, we're making like our 20-year record. Like, this is kind of a landmark. And, yeah, I think we truly just like, we were comfortably ourselves. And as we've been making lots of records and doing this a long time, I think we've gotten better and better at our craft. And so we're not trying to be, we've found our voice. We know what we do well. And we kind of are just like comfortable in our skin as a band. And I think that, this record certainly, I hope people hear that in this record. I feel like that's kind of where we are right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should do more talking, but I think rather than talking about doing the shit we want to do, we've just done it. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of been our MO from the get, So I mean, and I guess we could feel good about, walking the walk but we tend to do probably less talking the talk than we could in terms of, promoting our music and letting everyone know how great we are and, why they should be following our band and how we're the real deal and it's not bullshit and it's not, it's not some manufactured thing made in a lab or any of that. But, I think like, Gordy said, I think to us, the satisfaction is actually just getting to do that. I think kind of having to talk about yourself like that all the time and pumping yourself up to the rest of the world. I mean, at least for me, I think that could be a little bit exhausting. I think we've generally tried to let the music speak for itself,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Now I have to ask, because the fan in me would be remiss if I didn't. And this show, like I was telling you earlier, like we kind of push it a little bit here, and to see, it's not intentional to try to piss people off. And I don't think this is going to piss you off at all, but when you look at your career and you look at everything you've done, right? We talked a little bit about covers and all that, and I think you know where I'm going, right? But for a band like yours to have success with a cover, how does that fit? How does that feel? How does that sit with you guys? Like, was it an accident? Was it by design? Are you okay with it? Does it help?
I mean, there's no pissing us off. I think we have pretty thick skin. We're grateful for all the success that we've had. It's really interesting. Our first record, there were no covers. Our second record, we threw a Gillian Welch song, Look at Miss Ohio, on there. And I had seen her play that live in 2003, I think, when her record Soul Journey came out. I went home that night, learned how to play it. And when this band formed, we like turned that song on its head and did something radically different with it. And then our third record, we were making this record that had this Gulf Coast theme to a lot of the songs. And, we had heard this Levon Helm tune, Hurricane, that he didn't write either. But he was the first to record it, and it felt prophetic. I mean, it was from like 1979, 1980, and it kind of fit thematically with this record, and we kind of turned his version on its head and did something radically different with it musically. And that record was kind of a flop for us when it came out. No, I didn't feel like our fans really loved it. And we just kept moving and making more records. And then, here we are a few years, 6-7 years later, all of a sudden the song Hurricane that we had recorded started gaining steam, and people weren't playing the Levon Helm version. They were obviously playing our version, which is pretty different. And so, I mean, I think it's cool. I wish we'd written that song, but I also I love sprinkling in covers to our set list, to records. I mean, our last couple of records didn't have any covers on them, but we've also done entire tribute records. We did a remake of a Ray Charles record, and during the pandemic, we did a bunch of covers. So, cover songs, we're music fans first. So to me, it's like, doing covers is like kind of showing people where you're from and what you're into. And I love, kind of turning things upside down and viewing a song through a different lens. So, we're, for whatever reason, that our version of that song has taken off in a really organic way that just kind of happened slowly and gradually. And it's one of the songs we got to play every night, it seems. And, we're grateful for it.
I mean, I got a kid going to college next year, so we could use 2 or 3 more of those probably. It would be great for everybody,
And it's funny because I'm going to admit, right, hook, line, and sinker, where I remember I had heard your version maybe once or twice, and then one of my favorite bands, Shane Smith and the Saints, does a cover of your cover, more or less, right?
They sure do.
And I remember sitting in the crowd that night and hearing that song, and I was like, that's my favorite Shane Smith and the Saints song. You know what I mean? And then I went back, and then I went, oh my God, that's my favorite Band of Heathens song. And I was like, no, wait a minute. You know what I mean? And then you start to dissect it, right? And you know, Gordy, to your point, I love the band. I love Lee Von Helm. You know, they are probably the quintessential band, American rock band of all time, if you ask me. Right?
Canadian.
See, that's how fucked up this whole show is, right?
Yeah.
He's Canadian.
4 out of 5. 4 out of 5 Canadians agree. Levon's the only American in the band.
Levon was the only guy.
I wasn't totally off.
Yeah.
Listen.
No, you weren't.
And I only say that, I totally say that busting balls because I remember being a kid and my parents, you know, it was like 89, 90 when Roger Waters did The Wall. The band did backup vocals for a few songs. And I remember seeing pictures and Levon having a Red Sox hat on. So I just always, anyway, now we're getting into nitty gritty.
Well, the best part of that is Van Morrison doing Comfortably Numb, though. That's true. That's the fucking killer on that thing.
Absolutely correct.
Van crushes that. And hey, just another little aside. I think Nick J produced that version of Hurricane by Shane Smith, didn't he, Gordy? No? I thought he did.
I
thought he did. Okay.
He cleared that up for me one time. I made a comment. So our bass player also has a studio and has done some recording. He may have showed him that song. I don't know. I don't really know the backstory at all. All I know is Nick told me that the version he recorded with them is not the one that they put out.
Oh, okay. That helps clear it up. We're covering new ground here today, man. We're learning stuff. Cool.
Yeah, I don't know those guys very well. We cross paths every once in a while at music festivals and stuff, but I've never asked them that question. But they're nice guys.
They are. And, you know, like I have become close with Shane and the rest of the guys in the band, and I've never asked them either, right? And looking back, I should have.
Why don't you so we can avoid an awkward conversation and you can report back to both of us?
I really will. You know what? I definitely will. I'll next time I see them, I'll bring it up.
But you know, here's the question. Here's the question, though. I have seen them play it live, and they introduced the song as a Lee Von Helm song, which I think is interesting because Levon didn't write the song either.
Right.
And their version has nothing to do with Lee Von Helm's version.
It's your
Lee Von Helm's version is like a remake of like Up on Cripple Creek.
Right.
So I feel like that's an interesting intro for the song.
Well, listen, I have some in over there. I'm gonna sneak this right into the. But so, you know, I guess, long story short, right? The versions that are coming out now from other bands, whether it's Shane, whether it's the Costellos or Castello, however the hell you say those girls' names, they're great. And I've seen them do it now a few times too. And every version you hear and you see or whatever, it's your version, right? Is that? How do you feel about that?
It's awesome. I mean, nobody owns these songs. These songs are like available to everybody. And, you know, anyone that like, whether they're copying to it or not, I mean, because we've all done this, you know, I mean, anyone that is inspired by anything that you're doing and they take it and they want to help further it out into the world, I mean, it's the highest compliment, honestly. You know what I mean? I don't take it as anything other than that. Honestly, however they came to this song, you know what I mean? And even if they don't know that's where they got it from, I think it's a testament to the song being a great song, first of all. And then I think, like everything else, you know, there's a perfect kind of nexus of a great song and then the right arrangement and performance of it that just kind of galvanizes the tune. And that's what sticks with people, you know. And I think for us in this case, well, I'll claim it. I mean, you know, I think, you know, we were kind of able to do something cool and different with that song, and it just worked well, you know. There's not always a rhyme or reason to that, but I think that's kind of what happened in this case, and it's been a great thing.
I'd be upset if they weren't doing our version and they were doing a different version. You know, I mean, the reality is, like, you know, we Ed and I love to write songs, but we also make lots of records, and we do arrangements on lots of records. We do arrangements within our own band, and on that song, it seems to be like that version of that song seems to be the perfect blending of a really great song that was written, like, I mean, it's a magical song just from a songwriting standpoint. And then we found an arrangement. We chose the song. It had kind of been forgotten. I mean, it had been forgotten for decades.
Right.
And so we found it, recognized it as, hey, this is a great song, and then rearranged it in a way that seems to be resonating. And so, you know, people doing our version of it, it's like, I take it as a compliment. Like they like our choice in a song that we kind of brought back to the consciousness of American music, and they like our arrangement on it and our harmonies. And so, I mean, yeah, I love it. I mean, the more the merrier.
I still can't believe I call them a fucking American band.
Well, you know, it's tricky. It's tricky because their catalog, you know, I think Robbie was writing songs inspired by, you know, Americana, by this idea of this old picture, whether it's like The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. I mean, I think he was using Levon as his muse, the American guy in the band. And so I think it's an easy mistake to make, you know, and they obviously, you know, spent a ton of time in LA and upstate New York. So
there is something to that too. There's always been this sort of thing where bands, like not American bands, have a way of just their perspective on the music and the ideas. They have a way of like romanticizing it, might not be the right word, but they're able to make it, you know, visualize and make it more picturesque, and it just sort of, it kind of blooms to life in a really amazing way, you know, kind of in the way that like English bands would play blues music, or you know, like English bands took American rock and roll and made it into their own thing. I mean, like, you know, the Beatles and the Stones, for example, like just the two biggest, greatest bands of all time, you know what I mean? It's like, so it is interesting how that, you know, that thing kind of becomes seamless in a way, you know, honestly, in the same way that I grew up in New England and I had an incredible affinity for soul music and for country music at a young age. It's like, I didn't grow up with anyone that talked like that or had those experiences, but the music spoke to me on a real cellular level, you know? So I think you can be inspired by anything, whether you're like a product of it or not. And I think be authentic within that too, as long as you're representing yourself in an authentic way.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because like we've just kind of become full circle with all this, you know, and the way you guys sound and the way you guys write your music, you know, in being out of Austin and all that, like how much would you say, you know, you've put into that, like being out of Texas, or, you know, Gordy being from Texas, Ed being from New England originally, you know, like, does a lot of that cross over where it's, you know, you know, like Ed, you didn't necessarily grow up with country music, right? Especially, you know, in New England, then, you know, it's only been within the last 20 years or so that country music matters up here. And, you know, do you find those inspirations sometimes, I don't want to say phony, but like not comfortable? You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny. I just was working on a song the other day, and the whole idea of it was kind of about what you're saying. And I think for the band, like, I think we've always been our authentic selves. Like, we've never like, we're not promoting ourselves as like a hayseed, you know, straw in the teeth overalls kind of country band. Like, we're not that, you know, we're all kids, they're suburban kids, and we grew up the way we did. And it's like, you know, we're sort of distilling our experiences through music that we love, you know. So there's a certain filter on the music for sure. And I think people have said that we're, you know, a classic rock band, or like, you know, we're kind of like our vibe is retro or whatever that is. I mean, I guess for me, I never really have looked at music on a time continuum. I mean, I just think like there's good music and that's kind of what I've hopefully gravitated towards. I could put a record on, you know, I could put a Robert Johnson record on, and it's scratchy and it doesn't sound like a modern production, but the essential like matter of the music, the emotion of it, you know, the way it resonates with you as a listener, that's kind of what I've always been after, you know, like, and that started, like Gordy said, we're music fans. So like in listening to music that moved me, I could only, you know, help but as a musician to kind of distill that influence and take it in some way and be inspired by it, and then, you know, have output with it, you know. like as early when you're doing it, I think it's a very conscious thing. You're like, I want to sound like Otis Redding, or I want to sound like, Merle Haggard, or whatever it is. But as you do this longer, and you kind of assimilate these influences, and the Rolodex of influences becomes deeper and wider, you start to find your own voice within that. And you can be aware of where you're taking things from, but I think the way you process it, the more you do it, more and more it becomes you.
Yeah.
I once heard this David Lee Roth interview, and he was talking about like, Van Halen was like a really unique sounding band, and like they kind of arrived at that by failing to sound like all of their idols and all of their influences, So I think there's a level of like, you take something on board, you love it, you try to spit something out that you think sounds like that, but it doesn't at all, because you're not that, and you can't be. You don't have the same lived experiences, you know what I mean? So ultimately, like, you start to appreciate and realize that like what you have to offer to the music that you're making is the most important thing. Your perspective, your voice, your sound, how you arrive at those things that's what people are interested in. I mean, it's like, you can watch American Idol or The Voice, and there's lots of great singers on those shows, but that's ultimately like people that are after music and that are into it for kind of deeper reasons. They need the perspective, they need the voice, the unique thing, that only, any individual can offer.
Yeah.
I think authenticity is that thing that Ed's talking about, that, I grew up with the Beatles and the Stones and Dylan and Paul Simon, as my influence from my parents. But I was in Houston and listened to a bunch of country music, culturally, that was popular, and that's what everybody listened to. And when I started playing in bands, we were playing grunge music, and as a teenager. And I think, and then when I first started writing songs, it was because I discovered Townes Van Zandt and Guy Clark and Steve Earle, and kind of got blown away by that whole world of songwriting. And so I think as an artist, you're in the beginning, you have all these inputs. And for us, I think it's a wide, diverse bunch of musical influences. But in the beginning, you're trying out different voices and styles, and trying to find your own voice, like the Van Halen story, by like trying to sound like these other things. But eventually you find your own voice, you get comfortable in that. And now, I'm not afraid to say who our influences are. It's like, I feel comfortable in that we've found a voice, as a band. And, we may not be, I love country music. I love the outlaw thing. I feel like what we do as an independent band, kind of making music and having a career on our own terms, completely removed from any labels, any money. There's no outside money. This has been like homegrown from the ground up with this band. And I think there's a lot of like people covered in tattoos and out there making press, screaming about how outlaw they are, and, giving the middle finger to the establishment, while they're firmly embedded on labels and in the establishment. But they're trying to become stars on the backs of some image that was created in the 70s,
Right.
that they're just piggybacking on. And so, I don't know, for me, sometimes I just like have to kind of like look around and laugh. And I'm grateful for what we have. I mean, it's like we're making music on our own terms, and it's I don't know. I just get a kick out of the whole thing. I went on a little bit of a rant. What I started off wanting to say was that I feel like when we're making records, we're still chasing the Beatles. As far as I'm concerned, sonically, it's like those are perfect records. But obviously we don't sound like that. But anyway, I lost my train of thought on my rant.
We're fucking outlaw, man. That's what you were saying.
Getting worked up about all the posers. But
we're fucking outlaw, man. That's what you were saying.
I mean, really, realistically, you are. I mean, you're doing it.
No, I know.
We know. You're doing it.
know.
I would say you're doing it the right way. Like, obviously we all listen to the radio shit, and I'm sure places like Spotify and, you know, the internet in general has been a huge help for you guys. But like, you know, the word of mouth, the people going to shows, like that's where it really matters. I think.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, yeah, to us too. I don't like at the end of the day, there's no right or wrong way to do this. You've got to follow your own,
Right.
you know, follow your own arrow, as Casey Musgrave says. And you know, but I think like I mean, I couldn't imagine doing this any other way. You know, I couldn't imagine saying that we were one thing and then being something else. I think we're just trying to be our best authentic selves, and I think our music reflects that. And I'm happy to talk about that, you know, ad infinitum, you know, but yeah.
I take that even farther, Ed. I would say there is a right and a wrong way to do this.
Okay.
And I would say that like authenticity, what you just said, is like that's the way. It's like not trying to be something you're not.
Right.
And obviously in the beginning of a career, there's a lot of trying on different hats, trying to find your way, trying to find your voice. But at a certain point, you know, as an artist, you find a voice, and that can change over time. But like being authentically yourself is, I mean, that's life. That's the secret to all of it.
Right. I think you're absolutely
yeah,
right.
I guess what I was saying is like a right or wrong way. Like, you know, someone's authenticity might not be your authenticity.
Absolutely.
You know. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, so you know, I know you guys are busy, and I thank you so much for taking the time and all that. It's a huge honor to have you guys here. But for everybody else that, you know, you got an album. You know, Countrysides is coming out as when we put this out on Friday, I would assume is the date. I don't have the date in front of me. I don't like, you know, I'm awful with dates. I just know the week the album comes out, this is coming out.
February 20th,
yeah,
I think.
It's probably a
19,
Friday.
20?
I don't know.
Let's see.
Mostly everything comes out on Friday, right?
20th, the 20th.
Okay.
Yeah, the
All right,
20th.
so yeah, Friday.
Yep.
So this will come out on Monday. Friday will come out the album. For people, obviously nobody's heard it yet as this is coming out. What are some things you would want your fans to be on the lookout for?
With the album?
Yeah, sound-wise, you know, lyrically, what are some things you think the fans should recognize, maybe not recognize, etc.?
There's kind of a cool thing we discovered as we were making the record. The album kind of has an arc, start to finish, that's kind of the story of the band, and it's a story of, you know, finding inspiration early on, chasing it, you know, to the end of the earth, touring, then realizing, oh shit, this is hard. Like there's some challenges. This is not all, you know, just good times all the time, and it kind of follows the ups and downs of the arc of our 20-year career, and it lands in a place where I think it's embracing the beauty of commitment to something bigger than yourself, and surrendering to a bigger trip, a bigger adventure, and I think that's kind of like the overall message of the record, is this kind of the beauty in commitment, whether it's to our band or to music itself, to a marriage, to your friends. I think that's kind of like one of the themes that we landed on with this record. And the arc of it is something that I enjoyed, that I don't think it won't hit you over the head initially, but I think on a few listens it starts making sense.
Ed, any?
Oh, is it my turn now?
If you want.
I think for people that are fans of the band, I think you'll hear the band, you know, the same old Band of Heathens in there that you love. But like always, I think we're trying to push the envelope and just put a little bit of a different twist on it. I think it's also really accessible, and I think the people that maybe haven't been familiar with the band, I think this is a great record to jump in. You know, now is as good a time as any, and I think a lot of these songs are really like Gordy mentioned, you know, they're really inviting on the first listen, and I think with repeated listens, there's there's some deeper imagery and meaning and musicality to all of them. So I think, I'm happy about. I think that that's kind of always our goal. You know, you can make something that's first time you hear it, it's like it sticks with you and you love it. And then the more you dig into it, the more layers are revealed. It kind of it stands up to kind of repeated listens, because we've each probably listened to the record 1,000 times a piece at this point. So you know, and I think it's still holding up for me whenever I check it out.
Now, when you guys are hitting the road with this release, once this tour's over, are there plans in the works to go elsewhere? I'm just being selfish. Are you coming here at all this year?
We're working on it. I hope so.
Okay.
Hopefully in the fall.
All right.
See if we can I think we'll see eventually. I mean, if not this year, then next year. But hopefully in 26 later this year, we'll have some Northeast dates to put on the calendar.
Now, let me ask you this, and this is another push the envelope question. How do you guys do here?
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty good. I think, what's been interesting, I found,
it's
with
a
this
hard
kind of
market.
music, I feel, well, it's weird because growing up, like the Allman Brothers' biggest market was like the Northeast, and the
Right.
Black Crowes, like that was, like a lot of like bands that I think we were influenced by and kind of informed our music. Like the Northeast, if you can kind of break through the ceiling, that could kind of be your spot, you know? So, yeah, we've done okay. I mean, we've always kind of come through there, and feel like people show up, and we always have a good time.
Now, when you come up here, where are the spots you're typically hitting?
I mean, we've played so many of them over the years. Man, I think the last time we were in the Boston area, we played Natick. I'm drawing a blank of what's that place called?
At the Narrow Center?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
That was a fun spot. We've done the Sinclair in Cambridge a couple times.
I'll be there tomorrow
I think the first
night.
time.
Well, as we're recording this,
Cool.
I'll be there tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's a great club.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, even like way back, I think the first time we played, I don't even remember what the name of the place was. It was on Com Ave, like
Paradise?
20 years ago. No. Well, like the first time we ever came through town was like a little small club. I'll probably remember it well after this podcast is over.
It's fair.
The Paradise is great though. We played there, and seen a lot of great shows at the Paradise over the years.
Yeah. Well, whenever you guys are here, we'd love to, see and say hi in person, and, just hang out.
Absolutely.
Love that.
We love to hang out,
We love that.
That's what we do best.
That's our second best. That's the thing we're second best at. I think we're best at playing music, and we have a major in music and a minor in hanging out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I love when I hang out with bands or artists and like they get like uncomfortable because it's technically media, and I'm the enemy to a lot of these people, and it's like I don't care. If I could write a book, I could write a book at this point of things I've seen and heard and probably shouldn't have seen and heard. That I'd probably be a millionaire at this point. But I just love to be in the atmosphere. Like I don't give a shit what happens. I just want to be a part of it. But
get on it, and what you see is what you get here. There's not a whole lot of holding back. In public or behind the scenes. There's like we're not really putting on any airs. I think like the hang is the hang. If you were sitting on the bus with us, we'd be having some drinks and probably rolling a J, and someone would be DJing, and we'd be talking about the music that we're listening to, bands we like, bands we might not like. More actually, I think the older we get, we talk
same conversation.
Right, yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And I say to everybody all the time, I'm like, the only time you're ever on the record around me is if you're actually on the podcast. Like that's it.
Right.
And that's like none of this gets edited, so it's like you say what you want and see where the chips fall. You know what I mean? Like I've had some very interesting conversations with some very interesting people on here. I've had people that have had #1 hits say things on here, and then for some reason their PR team doesn't promote the episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it happens.
How did we do?
I think you did great. I had a great time.
Cool. I feel like we passed. I feel pretty good about it.
I guess I'll see if Natalie emails me later and is like, "Don't air that," or But
I don't even think Natalie's really there. I think her name is just on the screen, and
just making sure nothing slips through the cracks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so far I've never gotten a message from her like on a side chain or anything that we've done anything egregious. So I think we're in the
I mean,
line.
I'll
still.
probably edit this part out, but whatever. No, I probably won't.
Cool.
I probably won't.
Cool.
But guys,
Keep it in.
Thanks so much for everything, man. It's awesome. Like I said, the album's great. I think if my lazy ass can get to it, I probably could do it now. I mean, I've had the album now for like a month, so we're gonna do a review on it and put it out, and we'll again, thanks for being here and doing what you're doing.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
Thanks
thank you so
us.
much.
No problem, guys. Have
Good
a
talking to you.
good rest of your day.
Cheers.
You too.
Cheers. Well, there you have it, everyone. Our conversation with the Band of Heathens. Again, guys, thank you so much for being here. Countrysides is out Friday. Great episode. Honestly, great conversation. A lot of fun. Like I said, we went to Larry Fleet 2 nights, his kickoff show in Boston on Thursday. Then played the Wolf Den at Mohegan Sun on Friday. Went and saw both. Awesome shows. Absolutely fantastic. If you've never seen Larry Fleet or haven't heard of Larry Fleet, I don't know what you're doing. But go check them out. Awesome stuff. And then we saw Lakeview Valentine's Day at Mohegan Sun at the Wolf Den too. We've been fans of Lakeview for a while. Not quite the sound you would hear from the Band of Heathens, but they're fun time. It brings my early 2000s high school years to the forefront because it's very similar to the shit I was listening to then. But anyway, thanks for being here. Next week we have Presley and Taylor will be on the show, talking about their new single and all kinds of fun stuff. Great girls there. So thanks for tuning in. If you liked what you saw, come on back. Go listen to other episodes. We've had some great guests over the years. We are in year 5 of this. I still can't believe that. But yeah, so thanks for hanging out and listening. And we go, like I said, go pre-save Countrysides. It'll be out Friday. It's a fucking phenomenal album. So thank you for the Band of Heathens and their whole team for setting this all up. And we'll see you next Monday, guys. Have a good week. Cheers.